Good evening and welcome to the Nuisance Abatement Board for March 9th, 2023. If Detective, you would lead us in the Pledge to Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Court Reporter, if you would do the roll call, please.
Mr. Lindsay. Mr. Lindsay.
Present.
Mr. Fanoff. Absent. Mr. Slotnick.
Here.
Mr. Pimper.
Here.
Mr. Foreman. Absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any of our people in the audience that will be testifying or speaking tonight?
I would say potentially Mr. Santiago.
Okay, if you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth? Yeah. Thank you. And when you go to the podium, please make sure you state your name and spell your last name. Thank you. All right, I would need an approval of the minutes. If everybody has read them, if I can have a motion to approve the minutes of February 9th.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, minutes are approved. Let's go to our first item, case number 22-11-03, 5100 North State Road 7, the Plaza Hotel. Detective.
Thank you. Notice that tonight's meeting was mailed, and obviously Mr. Santiago is here tonight. We have had 60 calls for service, 14 reports written, and 0 nuisance-related instances. I actually had the time to go through all 60 calls for service. I'll break it down for the board just in reports. I find those to kind of be a little bit more valuable per se. There was 2 reports that we had discussed at the last meeting. One was a sexual assault that was old and delayed. The other was an elderly abuse, which was an incident that didn't occur at the hotel, and it was follow-up from something else. But since then, there was 1 report written regarding lost luggage. It didn't seem like there was any nefarious incident with that. There was an assault where a boyfriend and girlfriend got into a verbal argument and the boyfriend hit the girlfriend or vice versa. There was a child protective services follow-up, again, not related to the hotel. There was a report written where a female had asked her significant other to watch her purse, and then he left without watching her purse, and the purse went missing. Not sure if that got turned in or turned up. Another disturbance regarding a verbal argument. There was a singular report of a attempted burglary. However, the victim declined prosecution. The hotel room wasn't actually burglarized. The subject advised that he was trying to find a quiet room to get away from his parents, but ultimately he was not arrested. There was a stolen vehicle from the parking lot where the victim advised that she had left her keys inside the vehicle. However, the vehicle was crashed and abandoned before the report was even made. So it was kind of a little bit suspicious in nature as to if the vehicle was really stolen or not, but that investigation is still pending. There was another suspicious incident report that was written where a female claimed that somebody had moved her luggage and thought that they had done voodoo to it. So we're going to categorize that as very suspicious. And then there was a recent sexual assault case. I'll say this as delicately as I can because it is a very fresh, open, and active investigation, but I don't see that there was anything that the hotel could have done to prevent that or had certainly any role or involvement in that. But it is still an open and active investigation. I spoke with the officer who is handling it. I met with Mr. Santiago. The hotel has been 100% cooperative with it. Thankfully, with the new video system and all the measures they've taken, it's certainly very helpful with the investigation, obviously, they're still retaining information for who's renting the rooms and things of that nature. So all those steps have made it, the detective commented, much easier for them to investigate that. But again, nothing that I would fault the hotel for, so to speak. And then just an information report. So all in all, obviously 0 nuisance-related incidents. I've gone through these. I actually expected an increase in the amount of what we describe as calls for service because the police detail has been on scene. So typically what would happen is, if a business had, say, 10 calls for service, but you put a police officer there 24/7, naturally more people are going to engage with that officer and have contacts, and all those things get logged as calls for service. So at our last meeting, I think we were at 80 calls for service. We're down to 60, and that is with the officers there. So if the board has any questions regarding any of the calls for service before I move on to the next. So I recently met with, I'm sorry.
I didn't know if Mr. Santiago wanted to.
He may when we discuss this next item. So we met on, is that Tuesday? My days have blended together this week. So we met on Tuesday and had a discussion regarding the police detail. And I know that we had a lengthy discussion about it at the last board meeting, but essentially, just for the board's refreshing, it's 2 officers are currently working from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. There's a gap, and then there's 2 more officers who are working from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. So essentially, he's paying for 20 hours of police-related services per day, 7 days a week. Just in reviewing the calls for service, speaking to my chain of command, and then obviously I had a meeting with Mr. Santiago. It would be the police department's recommendation, obviously through him and through the chair, to make a change to that to have the police detail from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., however, only 1 officer. Outside of the 4 a.m. to 8 p.m., it would be armed security. So there would essentially be 24/7 coverage, whether it was an officer there or armed security. And essentially, as we had discussed at the last meeting, it's extraordinarily cost prohibitive to have 2 officers there, or to have officers there at all, really. However, we believe that with this system, it would actually expand the coverage because you'd go from 10 hours of coverage a day, however, with the 2 officers, to, correct, no gap, which was the critical time that I think that, coverage was, needed or expected. So it kind of shortens it up a little bit, but it covers those key areas.
Do you happen to know what for the 60 calls for service, granted no nuisance related anyway, but the 60 calls from service, do you know when they happen? Like the majority of them, or?
So they're very sporadic. There's a lot of them in here that are just assistance rendered, so I don't have specifics on it, and that's why I kind of hone in on where the
There's
reports are made.
No pattern.
I would say that the patterns are typical, that, you kind of have a higher volume at night in the, nuisance or disturbance related things. And then you kind of have more of the report writtens and assistances during the day. But in speaking with Mr. Santiago, he definitely, can provide that firsthand when he believes the hotel has the biggest need. And obviously he's going to want to utilize that detail for his most
Absolutely.
busier or more problematic areas. So, we honed in on that 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. And then, of course, there would still be the armed security for all other times. So,
What about, okay. Well, I was thinking maybe that should be the goal. Maybe a month from now, but maybe like there should be a step from where we are now to that, because we're going from 10 hours, 2 officers with a 2-hour gap to 8 hours with 1 officer
right.
with no gap. So
it's kind of the conversation that Mr. Santiago and I had is that, the best way to put it is that as long as the police department is on site or on scene, you're basically going to have, say, 99% effectiveness. Mm-hmm. If you reduce that from 2 down to 1, you're still going to have the same effectiveness because the police department is on site
Totally on
and
board,
on
yeah,
scene.
got it.
So
But what about the time, though? We're going from we had 4 PM to 9 PM and then 11 to 4, is that what it was?
yeah, it was
So
4 to 9.
maybe we should do like
Let
we're going down to one officer, but maybe it should be 10 hours. 10 hours, instead of going from, instead of, as the next step, it should be maybe 6 PM to 4 AM.
Yeah.
One officer,
No, and I certainly understand that.
something
What-
like that. I
What
don't know.
the objective was with the schedule, though, is also to coincide with the availability of the officers, which also coincides with what the department's
Okay.
shifts are.
So that's
so-
what you can do, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that and I don't want to speak for Mr. Santiago, and you're welcome to if you'd like to, but it was really that he was seeing that 9 PM to 11 AM needed coverage, rather than any issues from that 4 PM
Okay.
to 8 PM window. But I'll let Mr. Santiago explain.
The new system.
Hello. Oh, here we go.
There you go.
Danny Santiago, Santiago. I totally in agreement with Detective Jameson. The issue obviously is that time. I mean, that's the crucial time, the 8 p.m., especially now that the time changed this weekend. So it is still light to that essence. When they leave at 4 in the morning, we will have a security officer. Because I totally agree. I love the fact that they're there. They're being extremely helpful. I mean, I remember the attitude when I started, before we get into this, that now they really, welcoming and they understand that we want to fix this. But I totally in agreement with him. I think 8 to 4 will be a perfect timing for us.
And part of our discussion was, when the majority of the check-ins are at the hotel, kind of when they're seeing that higher volume with the check-ins, which is reflective of what the recommended new hours are, but also any of those disturbance-related calls are generally almost midnight to 2 a.m. is what the trends are for the actual disturbance-related things. The delayed reporting and things of that nature, those are probably for the majority still being handled by the patrol division. And should an officer have to respond to a call or take any kind of action, dispatch will automatically send a road officer to back up the officer who's already there. So, it's that's why I say the effectiveness from going from 2 down to 1 is not 50%. It's still reflective of the department being there.
Are you noticing any trend as far as what day of the week some of these incidents are happening? Are they more on the weekend than during the week, or they're just sporadic?
Well, it's sporadic because we've been averaging 200 rooms. Like an example, this morning we have 102 checkouts and we got 103 check-ins. And that check-in time, especially this time of the year, occur from 8 to 11 o'clock. I would say that the 90% of check-in is done, and then obviously where people settle in, and then so it is different because we've been averaging 213 rooms a night.
Do you find any difference now that you're not accepting cash? That is strictly,
Oh.
Are you finding a difference in your clientele that you're
Absolutely.
getting?
Absolutely.
Good.
I mean, and I
So
knew.
it's been a plus.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think Jameson and I have agreed with that. I mean, even from the beginning, I mean, I thought this, I didn't realize it's going to work this quick, but it have. Because I think it have to do with the police officers now to really like to go there because now they got, they're no longer, oh, we got to go there. So I think that helps a lot.
Good. I'm glad to hear that it really hasn't affected your check-ins.
Again, we knew we were going to take a hit in the scene of when a guest see a police officer park in front, they think something is wrong. Now they know it's part of our everyday, operation. So they are, this week we have 18 different comments from ExpediaBooking.com that they feel safe. There's some police officers there, and most of them they do walk the lobby, and I really appreciate that.
They're visible, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Very good.
Now, Detective, are there any recommendations with respect to the armed security? Are they going to similarly be marked? Are there any sort of police requirements or approval requirements, or is it just the hotel will hire an armed security for the remainder of the time that the police presence is not there?
Correct. Our only recommendation was that they be present at all times, that the officer's not. And from a scheduling standpoint, not having the gap actually within what the recommendation is, it achieves no gap. But as far as the directives given, Mr. Santiago spoke at length about what the requirements were of security, what his expectations were. And he's actually done a good job at vetting them out, and they made some personnel changes within security to make sure that they had a more proactive, guard on site as opposed to less proactive. And I don't know if you want to comment on that.
I totally agree with that, and that's the thing. The fact that they're armed or not, that's a decision that I make. In all my hotels, I do bring that. The company that I hire is well, known, and the experience they obviously got to have insured because of. Actually, my number one requirement is they have a $5 million insurance instead of a $1 million because they do carry an arm.
Very good.
Excellent.
Just to follow up on that, and I don't know if the board through the chair wants to vote on the recommendation for
Yeah.
the change or,
We'll need one of you to make the motion and,
I'll make the motion to adopt the recommendation, Detective Jameson.
I second the motion. Oh, what's the motion?
if you want, through the chair, if you don't mind, if I could read out what the.
Sure, go
exact-
ahead, please.
okay. The motion would be to change the section of the police recommendations regarding the police detail from the language that it currently reads to the following.
Can we use the word update instead of change?
The hotel management will provide a police detail from the hours of 8 p.m. until 4 a.m., 7 days a week, and armed security from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week.
We have a second?
That's the-
We have a second?
I second this motion.
okay, would you like to do a roll call, please, for the vote?
Mr. Lindsay,
Aye.
Mr. Slotnick,
Aye.
and Mr. Pemper.
Aye.
Okay, it has been approved.
Thank you. And just to add, I know at the last meeting, the hotel had 5 burglary-related incidents. This month was essentially 0. I think that's in
Awesome.
credit to the locks all being now changed. There was only 1 attempt, as I had mentioned, an unsuccessful attempt, which is obviously a positive thing.
Very.
But the renovations to the hotel are actually starting on Monday, beginning with flooring. So as promised, they're moving
Awesome.
forward on that, and all is well, so that's it.
Well,
on
thank
my
you
side.
very much, Mr. Santiago. We're very happy to see that the changes have been very positive all the way around, and we wish continued greatness for the rest of your term with the Nuisance Abatement Board.
Yeah, thank you. And Joyce and Jameson and Sergeant Wright are being incredible working with us, and I'm looking forward to our relationship moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with the renovations.
Thank you.
Okay, our next case is number 23-02-01, 18 Northwest First Avenue, One Stop Shop. Detective.
Thank you. The owner of the hotel, Mr. Majdi, couldn't be here tonight. I spoke with him this morning. His father passed away. He had to fly out of the country, but he does have 2 representatives here today from the business.
Please accept our condolences.
I will say I've been in constant communication with the owner. He's been wonderful. I've stopped in the store frequently. He truly is doing everything that he can do and everything that we've asked of him, and then some. The total calls for service were only 6. They only had 2 reports written and 0 nuisance-related incidents for the property. The 2 reports that were authored, one was for an assault, but the assault actually happened in the roadway, didn't happen at the business. When I read the report, it said that there was a vehicle that parked at First Avenue and First Street, the person got out, had some sort of disturbance in the roadway. But as we had stated, when the property first came under nuisance abatement, part of the goal was to try to assess which incidents were actually occurring at the property and which ones were occurring around the property, not at the fault of the owner or owner's manager. So the only other report that was written on the property was for, it was actually titled a suspicious incident, but it was an argument that arose between a patron of the store. It kind of spilled out into the sidewalk and then spilled back out into the store, but there was no crime that occurred. It was titled as a suspicious incident, and basically everybody went on their way. So in speaking with the owner, as I had said, they're in compliance with all the recommendations. And additionally, he advised that he had installed 18 cameras. So I think the system before was 5 cameras, and what our recommendation was is 1 camera on each side and at least 1 camera inside. So they had since purchased a system where there's 18 cameras. He wasn't in town, so I wasn't gonna kind of bother him with trying to go scope it out and see exactly what the parameters of the system were, but they were already in compliance with that aspect. But I just wanted to note that, you know, he really has given a full, you know, concerted effort to try to go above and beyond what our recommendations were. The only thing I'll bring back to the board as well is that we had discussed last time who was doing the homeless feedings. And speaking with the managers, it seems as though it's not as clear cut as we had hoped, that it was perhaps one establishment, but it's rather perhaps multiple establishments and kind of just some word of mouth, people passing by and things like that. So we're going to kind of work with code to see what we can figure out to designate perhaps something maybe a little bit further away from the store, because right now it seems to be a little bit chaotic with people just randomly showing up. And in that, there also additionally, there are some organized feedings going on, but I hope to have more to bring back to the board next time when that gets a little bit more sorted out. But in the meantime, that's what we've been able to at least identify, so.
I know, living in the area and driving by at night, you don't have near the crowds around the store that you used to have, which is good for you. It's good in a way because there's not the loitering that used to be there. And hopefully your customers feel a little better about coming in the store. You know, the dedicated ones are going to stay coming. But, I mean, we appreciate the efforts and everything that the store is doing to follow the recommendations and for your own good. Any questions or discussion about this? Okay. Thank you very much. Do you need them for anything else? Okay. It's our last case. Any board discussion on anything before we adjourn?
From my end.
So are they staying, are they staying in the nuisance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're at least a
They're
year.
still, oh, they
Yeah,
stay for a year?
it's a
Okay,
year,
okay,
yeah.
okay. How did they get, how are there less people loitering there now? Just something happened, just the cameras, or?
I think it's a lot more brighter than it used to be.
What was the question?
How,
The decrease in people loitering around there.
yeah,
the-
yeah.
So
how-
the store has posted the nuisance abatement signs.
Ah.
That I think, you know, naturally,
has
maybe
an-
kind of people see that, the additional placement of cameras, but then the owners were also directed to advise people not to loiter.
Oh,
And then on the police department side, we've asked for extra patrols, have officers go by and kind of clear people away from the store if they are noticing any loitering, or, you know, working with the store owner, and perhaps our presence out there, even stopping in. You know, I think it's a little things tend to go a long way, but perhaps the placement of the cameras. They now also keep the lighting on around the store. It
It's
used to-
very bright
I believe
at
it used
night.
to be dusk until midnight. He since keeps it on dusk to dawn. So a lot of little things, but, you know, I think there's still some work to
good.
be done. But again, the store is really doing what they can do.
And considering the bus terminal being across the
Right,
street,
right.
which is a big impact on what, it's so much better than I expected it to be.
Right.
Did anything ever change with the church and the feeding? Or-
Yeah, we're still trying to identify exactly which church it is. Mr. Majdi was trying to ask each person when they came to do feedings who they were, and he was getting a lot of pushback where the entities were refusing to tell him who they were.
What?
Right, so now from a police department standpoint, we essentially have to try to catch who it is in the act, so to speak. But of course, you know, that task
Do they
is,
do this every day?
no.
Okay.
Well, let me rephrase that. They do it every day, but not always at the same time and not
Okay.
always at the exact same place. For example, I spoke to the manager this morning just in following up, and he said that, you know, some lady had been dropping off pizzas, and it was just random times and random days of the week. But then there were also weekend organized feedings. That's who he made contact with to try to assess who they were and work with them, and they refused to state who they were. So there's going to need to be a little bit more police department involvement to try to identify who they are. I don't know if they're taking it as more confrontational versus him and them trying to just work together, but hopefully by the next month's meeting, we'll have more to bring back on the feeding aspect of it.
Okay, very good.
Didn't you say last time that you knew the church or?
No.
No.
My church has a weekly program.
Okay.
So I kind of understand some of the issues, but ours is a little more contained. And we average anywhere from, I would say we probably average about 130 a week
Gotcha.
in a much bigger scale because we do clothes. We get the, they call it shower of love, where a truck comes in, they, you know, get a shower and all that kind of stuff. So it's a different scale than they've got.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Got it.
any other discussion?
Not on my end.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, see you for the April meeting, and next
you.
month we will have elections.